In this video, we will answer the question, what did PDRM say to Suhakam about the disappearance of Joshua Hilmy and Ruth Sitepu? The 20th of January 2022 was the last hearing date of the Suhakam Public Inquiry into the disappearance of Christian pastors Joshua Hilmy and Ruth Sitepu more than 5 years ago in Selangor, Malaysia. Suhakam designates the National Human Rights Commission of Malaysia. The inquiry panel heard submissions from all the parties involved in the case. Joshua is a Malaysian Malay. He became a Muslim apostate when he chose to become a Christian. Later, he married Ruth, an Indonesian Malay Christian who had received seminary training in Indonesia. Joshua shared his faith freely. He even conducted the Christian rite of baptism on some Malays in Malaysia. Many civil society organizations suspect that the disappearance of Joshua and Ruth may be related to the abductions and disappearances of the Shiite Muslim social activist Amri Che Mat and of the Christian pastor Raymond Koh. Two common factors link the four individuals. They did works of social service as an expression of their faith, and they're members of minority religious groups. In case you didn't know, the majority Muslim group in Malaysia is the Shafi'i school of Sunni Islam. Another common factor is that in each case, the police, whom we will refer to as PDRM, appear to have done very little. Also, PDRM didn't keep the victims' families regularly informed about developments in the cases, failed to interview crucial witnesses, and failed to pursue obvious lines of investigation. Worse, in the case of Raymond Koh, PDRM officers gave conflicting testimony during the inquiry conducted by Suhakam. All of that is a matter of public record. It can be found in the notes of proceedings of the Suhakam inquiries and in reports issued by the Suhakam commissioners. One of the things established in those inquiries is the principle that in cases of alleged enforced disappearance, the onus of proof is laid upon the state. The state, in this case PDRM, must prove that it is not complicit in the disappearance. The burden is placed on PDRM because, unlike ordinary citizens, PDRM has the power necessary to obtain information. For example, taking statements from witnesses, obtaining bank statements and phone records. In the cases of Amri and Raymond, Suhakam had evidence to conclude that they had been abducted by the special branch of the Royal Malaysian Police, PDRM. There was also sufficient evidence of acquiescence, which means acceptance of something without protest. It's like Alex murdered Brent. Brent is a serial rapist. Rape is a terrible crime. Therefore, let's not investigate or prosecute Alex. In the case of Joshua and Ruth, there's a possible connection with the special branch. It involves a very senior police officer, DCP Awaluddin Jadid, head of the Social Extremism Division of the special branch. Awaluddin made a speech in which he urged majority Muslims to take the law into their own hands to limit the activities of Shiites, Christian workers, and Malay pastors. There's strong evidence of acquiescence. This is because there's strong evidence that many people who might have had relevant information or could have been suspected of foul play in the couple's disappearance were not investigated by PDRM. PDRM were very upset by the Suhakam conclusion in those cases. They are clearly familiar with the Amri and Raymond cases. From the evidence pursued by the lawyers acting for the family of Ruth, PDRM knew there are two central elements which indicate that the couple are victims of enforced disappearance. The elements are Awaluddin's speech and acquiescence, or the idea of, he deserved it, just let it be. Yet the PDRM submission didn't touch on Awaluddin's speech, and it didn't touch on acquiescence. It claimed wild allegations were being made against the authorities, though it assiduously avoided saying PDRM. But the submission included what sounded like wild allegations. It was in Malay. What follows is our understanding of what we heard. The submission said, 1. There are no criminal elements in the case. 2. The couple had issues with individuals who didn't like them. 3. The issues arose from their rejection of the teachings of some churches and from their disrespect for Islam. 4. The couple fled Malaysia so that Joshua could avoid being investigated by PDRM in the matter of an allegation made against him in reports lodged in Chembong, Negeri Sembilan, by a Malay Muslim rights group. 5. The couple may have used illegal means to flee, means which have a high risk of resulting in death. 6. Some documents in the case received by Suhakam from the family's lawyers are questionable because they may have been fabricated, possibly to create ill will. 7. Witnesses who should have given evidence to PDRM chose instead to give evidence to Suhakam because they worried that the government is complicit in the disappearance and certain parties instigated Suhakam to investigate. The PDRM submission failed to mention that the police investigation officer in the Chembong case testified at the inquiry that she had questioned Joshua in the Rembau police station, and that later, on instruction of the Attorney General's chambers, the case was classified as no further action, and Joshua's name was removed from the wanted list in 2014, at least 2 years before Joshua disappeared. The PDRM submission cherry-picked a few meager examples from the evidence to support PDRM's hypotheses and ignored the theme of acquiescence, which Ruth's lawyers had so clearly exposed with much evidence during the inquiry. The PDRM submission also said the burden of proof should lie on the complainant, as enshrined in the Evidence Act of 1950, which reads, in Section 101, Clause 1, whoever desires any court to give judgment as to any legal right or liability dependent on the existence of facts which he asserts must prove that those facts exist. And it also says when a person is bound to prove the existence of any fact, it is said that the burden of proof lies on that person. Clearly, PDRM rejects what was said by the Suhakam panel which investigated the Amri and Raymond cases. Effectively, that panel said that the state must prove that it did not commit the crime and that it did not demonstrate acquiescence. PDRM blatantly and unapologetically rejects a standard based on international conventions and precedents. PDRM rejects the standard by which we call to account, for example, the government of Israel when it abuses Palestinians. The PDRM submission didn't highlight any evidence which could controvert the plentiful evidence that PDRM didn't investigate those who bore grudges or made threats against the couple. It actually sounded like PDRM would defend a decision not to investigate or prosecute Alex, the hypothetical murderer of Brent, the serial rapist. It sounded like the submission provided evidence of acquiescence. The PDRM submission didn't highlight evidence which could counter evidence submitted by the family's lawyers that PDRM didn't interview critical witnesses and didn't obtain material evidence in a timely manner. The PDRM submission instead insisted, without offering a shred of evidence, that PDRM are still investigating the case 5 years on. This, despite the fact that the submission insinuated the couple fled the country using illegal means and probably died while doing so. What do you think? Did PDRM's submission help restore trust in PDRM? Do we need an independent police commission to investigate complaints against the police? What do you think?